Hi, thanks for joining us on the Get Inspired Talks podcast. What you're about to listen to are highlights from a longer podcast. To listen to the entire episode, go to getinspiredtalks.com/podcast. Hey everyone, my name is Rod Jans, and you're listening to the Get Inspired Talks podcast. For this episode of the Get Inspired Talks podcast, we visit with Peter Scott. In this episode, we discuss artificial intelligence, or what is commonly known as AI. We talk about the challenges AI presents and how to deal with them today, especially going into the future. Our guest, Peter Scott, is an information technology consultant to NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, the people who explore the solar system with robot spacecraft. He's also an author and speaker about the promises and perils of technology, in particular, artificial intelligence. He is also part of an international group of experts addressing the problem. Now please welcome Peter Scott to the Get Inspired Talks podcast. Now with your Apple phone, you can just say, "Hi Siri," and it recognizes your voice. And it's kind of like, okay, so it's obviously recognizing behavior. It's recognizing what I have on my phone. My maps know where I typically go and that sort of thing. Like they're tracking my location and all that kind of stuff.
Right. And our iPhone recognizes my wife's face to unlock it, but it doesn't recognize her in the morning, which annoys her.
Yeah. Just going back to the trucking example, and then we'll wrap things up here pretty soon. But how do we make decisions about that? Like, so self-driving truck is going to eliminate 3 million jobs, as you said. So do we say we shouldn't do that? Or, what is your answer to that kind of thing?
Well, in a sense, that's like someone kayaking down the Colorado River, trying to make decisions about which way the river goes. They don't have a lot of say in that. What they need to focus on is which way to paddle when it counts.
Okay. Yeah. Good.
And there are huge movements here that won't be affected by policy that's even remotely foreseeable. Now that doesn't stop people from trying, and some of that effort may buy us some crucial time. For instance, the Asilomar conference, that Asilomar is in California, and there were AI scientists met there in January 2017 to develop protocols that AI development should follow. And they're laid out very carefully to prevent things like runaway improvement of AI, where it suddenly develops self-awareness and becomes super smart within days. That only applies if you're following the rules. There are plenty of people with reason not to. And so that is beneficial, but something that attempts to paddle with the river in the right direction at the right time, I think has a better chance of succeeding. Like when Elon Musk started a company called Neuralink to develop brain-computer interfaces. And that was so that we would be able to communicate electronically with computers, and that would give us critical time when AI becomes developing exponentially fast, because trying to communicate with something that's super intelligent through just speaking and reading it's going to be too boring for it. It'd be like having a radio conversation with someone on Pluto whose responses take 10 hours to reach us. But if we can do that at the speed of thought, that is so much faster that it could buy us a crucial amount of time in the development of AI that we would have to influence it. So that's the sort of direction and thinking that I think will provide more leverage in shaping the future.
I'm very interested in consciousness, and you mentioned something real quickly and we passed over it. I wanted to go back to that. You said there's some sort of test to tell whether something is conscious or not. Can you elaborate on that just a little bit?
Yes, it's fascinating. I'm actually doing a continuing studies course on this whole topic at University of Victoria shortly, and we'll have plenty of time to get into this sort of thing in a lot of detail. And the Turing test was devised by Alan Turing, who was genius in World War II, solving the German Enigma codes. And you can see Benedict Cumberbatch play him in the movie, The Imitation Game. But he also invented concepts of computing and artificial intelligence decades ahead of where it would be possible to actually create them. He was that far ahead. And he asked the question in an era where the glass valve was the state of the art in computing. He asked the question, how do we know when a computer is thinking? Or if it's thinking like a human, how should we decide that? Because there's been lots of philosophical debate about how we would decide that, but people getting wrapped up. And he just, like a typical computer scientist, applied this pragmatic test and says, level the playing field so you don't know if you're interacting with a computer or a human being. So you're conversing with it over text chat. And if you can't tell the difference, then it is thinking like a human. Or you have to treat it like it's thinking like a human. And there is something now called the Loebner Prize, which is an annual competition to test that out. It's a very interesting field, because does it measure consciousness? A lot of people would say that something that would pass that test would be conscious, and it might be in some way, but it would also be lying to itself, because it wouldn't be human. It would, and if it knew it wasn't human, then the only reason it would pass the test would be as if it was pretending to be human just because that amused it, or something like that. So Turing test does have a slight flaw there, and it doesn't detect consciousness per se. It just tells you whether you should think of something as thinking like a human. Well, I think the should or shouldn't is something in this arena that no one short of a major government in the world could shape, and probably not even them. I mean, for an example, you go back to after World War II and the invention of the hydrogen bomb. And there were plenty of ethical concerns about inventing the atomic bomb, and the hydrogen bomb uses an atomic bomb as its fuse. There is no theoretical limit to the yield of a hydrogen bomb. So there were scientists that believed that this had a chance of igniting the nitrogen in the Earth's atmosphere and causing it to fuse and destroying the Earth. And there was no reason to develop this because the World War II had been won. So there were petitions, don't do this. And didn't make any difference. It didn't make any difference at all to slowing that down. And if we couldn't stop that, then there's no way that having that conversation about AI is going to make a dent. So again, it's trying to paddle upstream in a raging rapid. We have to look for where we can make those key differences. And some of us are in positions to make differences at a wider scale than just talking to the Siri or Alexa in our home. If we're shaping the course of businesses or communities, then we can think about what automation means for those organizations and plan so that to begin with, at least, we're not concerned about in that community survival due to mass structural unemployment. If the people have their survival taken care of, then they can look at how to help other people. It's like put your own oxygen mask on before your kids in the plane, right? So make sure, first of all, your own survival is attended to, because otherwise can't look at any other levels. Well, I think one of the small concrete things that everyone could do, and it is trite, but it does get people thinking, is look at how you're interacting with your virtual assistants like Siri and Alexa. And ask yourself, if this was being used to raise a child, what would they learn from that? And that's the lesson that we're going to have to take to heart more and more. Because before long, we'll be encountering artificial intelligences that test our ideas of where the boundaries of being human lie. And they're going to force us to confront questions that used to bother only philosophers, like what does it mean to be a human being? And that's very uncomfortable for a lot of people. And we should seek out people that do deal with that and are comfortable with answering that question and can help other people answer that question for themselves, because we're at the brink of philosophical and technological revolution that will invade the traditional boundaries of that definition.
Peter, if people want to discuss this with you personally or have you come speak, how do they get in touch with you?
Sure, thank you. I have a blog at humancusp.com. That's humancusp.com. It's based on the series title of my book, which you can see here, that I wrote to crystallize my thinking about this, Crisis of Control. Got a nifty picture on the front there. And you can reach me through there, also at peter@humancusp.com, Human Cusp page on Facebook. And for anyone on Vancouver Island, go to the University of Victoria Continuing Studies area, and I will be leading a course on this starting October 25th.
Excellent. Well, thank you, Peter, for encouraging us to take some action and to think about this whole issue and how it's going to affect our children. This is a great discussion. I was worried about us getting way off in the weeds, but you explained a very complex issue to us in a simple way. I really appreciate that. So yeah, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure being on the show.
You've been listening to a highlight video from the Get Inspired Talks podcast. For the complete podcast, please go to getinspiredtalks.com/podcast.